Good morning and welcome to our session on Lowcode and with OutSystems. We are going to talk about this new system, which is a game changer, we call it.
Yes.
But first, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Jean Breinholt. I work in systems engineering at Deloitte, and I'm head of application architecture. And with me, I have Jacob.
Yes, my name is Jacob. I'm a manager also in systems engineering in Deloitte. I've been working a lot as a developer, as an architect, and also I have been heavily involved in the OutSystems application.
Yeah. So now you might be wondering, what is OutSystems? And that's exactly what we're going to take you through today. So first we're going to talk about what is the purpose and what is the market for OutSystems or low-code systems. Then we'll be talking about why we chose to work with OutSystems. And then we'll be talking about getting started, how you get your business up and running with this new platform. We're actually going to end this session by inviting you all to come to a demo or invite us to a demo to talk about your current needs. And we'd also like you to send in your questions if you have any while we talk. We'll try to answer them as quickly as possible. But let's see what actually causes us to take this action. So what we've seen beforehand is that we, in the beginning of the zeros, had a lot of IT development which actually just replaced the current way of doing business. As we did that, we became clever on how to use explicitly data actually, and we started to reinvent our business and add-ons to our product and services in terms of digitalization. But what we are striving to do is to become more digital. That means to think digital in every aspect of our product and our business. But what we also see is there's a lack of resources that can do this. Business people might be able to think in terms of IT, but IT people are very busy and limited in their resources. So while you want to ramp up a project when you have a great idea, it might be difficult to fit into those release cycles that have already been planned. So we see a turning point in the market where we would like to more rapidly deliver IT solutions, but we also see that the existing target operating models for IT is not a viable set off to make this happen. So while you're sitting in the business and you think, I have an awesome idea for an application that would be truly good for our customers, you will go to your IT and they will say, no, it's not part of our plan, but we can put it into the next release cycle. And as they do that, they are busy doing some other stuff, and you lose track of the market, and you do not succeed of getting this great idea ramped off. Maybe you'll be lucky to do that in the next release cycle, or maybe you lost it forever. So what happens is, you sit there with a massive backlog, and you won't have the time to innovate. You will have scarce resources because IT wasn't available at the moment that you needed them. And we also look into a rather complex system setup where you might be not so savvy as in business acumen. So what is there to do? I don't know if you can recognize this situation. I think I can do for at least some bigger companies, but also companies that struggle with legacy systems that need to innovate rapidly, but still has a backlog of issues and technical debt that need to be solved. So the solution is, hang on tight there. The solution is to use low-code. And what is low-code in itself? The term low-code is actually an expression to tell you that you don't have to code a lot. You can actually do fully with a visual full-stack development. That means that you can drag and drop, you can do your branches, and you can do your workflow setup. What is also involved in a low-code platform is a full lifecycle management setup, which means it's a platform that allows you to deploy rapidly. You do your automated test, you do your deployment into various environments, and you do your security as well. And then you can integrate into existing systems. And I think the latter bit is a bit of a game changer here, because what we've seen previously on, for instance, Lotus Notes and other legacy systems, they're very isolated and working in themselves. This low-code or the new low-code platforms are very extroverted. They are open, they are API-based, and that makes a huge difference. So if you can have a visual full-stack development setup where you're not supposed to be a computer scientist to develop, that means you have a lot of other resources you can put into play. That could be business people, that could also be, some of your IT people that have been focusing on other products, but are good at thinking algorithmically. the fact that you have a full life cycle set up also means you don't have to involve a lot of the other parts of the operations because everything is contained within the same platform. And the fact that you can deploy to any device means that you can target your users, whether they are on mobile or they are on web platforms. And integrating to existing systems just means that you can leverage on the assets that you already have. So this should all in all increase your innovation speed and gain you a faster track on getting to market. You could also say that if you have only one tool on one platform, then maybe you don't have all the sorts of different kinds of tools you have to maintain and train in. And then of course the platform has a built-in security, meaning that once you've set up the security measures you want to use, you can reuse that at all times. A lot of talk, I know, but what does it actually mean? It means that you can put your business into play and use your ideas quite instantly once you have started it. It means that if you have a great idea in one department and you have one savvy user who can go into the low-code setup, they can actually deliver on that, go from an idea to a visual project to a deployed code within very short time. We'll get back to later how short that time is, but I am truly amazed actually. It also means that rather than having an IT department that hogs the resources or been planned for use the next 2 years, you can check into all your business people and you can set them to good use. So you how do you say that? You have a whole lot of other market for people you can take into play when you have to deliver your solutions. It reduces your dependency on IT, and that sounds a bit weak, but the idea is that once you can build your own ideas and demonstrate how they work, and you can actually put them into play and deploy them to people, that your IT function is rather a support for architecture and operational support, but it's not limiting the way you can develop your own ideas. And then you can say that use cases for this, given that you can deploy to any devices, is very, very broad. For the IT department, there's also several advantages. If you have only one platform, or at least not a lot of different kind of suppliers and vendors to deliver to you, you have reduced the complexity, which means it's easier to operate. The fact that you can get feedback from some of the low-code platforms also means that you can help the users, or you can get great ideas for how to even increase and redevelop your product. You can combine these platforms with your existing setup with Agile and DevOps. They're made for that. And then you can say it's a quite open microservice-based architecture, which means that we're using the current standards for REST and open API standards. But back to low-code, because I know I haven't really described what low-code is. I have talked a lot around it. So why is it low-code? What is that? So traditional hand coding is actually a craft which requires you to be some sort of computer scientist. You have to know a lot about what goes on in a computer to do that. It's expensive. It takes time to change. It's sincerely a personal thing to develop a piece of code and do an algorithm. So it's also hard to replace resources. Compared to that, a low-code platform is visual. As you can see on the pictures here, it looks like a BPM tool, and it's sort of inspired by that. But it's very much easier because a lot of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes on the computer has been abstracted away, so you don't have to think about all the computer science things. For instance, doing transaction management and stuff like that, or scalability. It's made for that, and it's built in. So what you get is a drag and drop programming facility instead of having to build everything from scratch. That is essentially what it is. And the low code, no code just stands for you don't have to do a lot of real code. You have to do some. You have to understand how algorithms work, but you can come a far way if you can, if you're savvy in Excel, for instance. So at Deloitte, we have chosen to go with OutSystems, which we find is an excellent platform for low code, no code development. We chose this one because it's rated very high, both for Gartner and Forrester and Ovum, who says this is actually one of the leaders. And now, Jake, technical bits and pieces of OutSystems.
Yes. First off, one comment to all of these things, or these analysis by Gartner and Forrester and Ovum, is that not only is OutSystems performing very well in those analysis, but also you see a lot of tools. And since those analyses were made in 2019, even more tools has popped up. So what you have to be aware of is not necessarily that OutSystems is the only way to go, but there's a huge movement pushing towards low-code environments, and that includes all of the major public cloud vendors. So AWS has their own, Google has bought their own, and Microsoft is having Power Apps as well. So we see a lot of different tools pushing in this direction. So this is most likely becoming a reality fairly soon. Now, looking into a little deep dive of how OutSystems work, we have picked out a range of different aspects that we think might be relevant for you to see whether OutSystems as a platform could be a fit with your organization. So, first of all, it's important to note that OutSystems is, of course, a low-code platform, but it's intended for enterprise applications. And that means that it's not only a tool you can use for creating simple or small applications, but you can actually use this to create enterprise-grade applications. They can be complex, they can be large, if that is what you would like. You can do that with OutSystems. If we look at the typical application types that you can build, OutSystems provide you with a possibility to develop both web applications and mobile applications. If we go for web applications, those are intended to be used using a browser. It's based on modern ways of developing web applications, meaning that you have the ability to specify whether the logic should be on the server side or the client side, for instance. You can use asynchronously fetching data, and this all allows you to give a better and modern performance of the web application. Also, you can use, you can consume, and you can expose APIs. We'll get into this a bit later as well. If we look at the mobile applications, there are different angles to take on this. So first of all, you can build native mobile apps. That means apps that are intended either in your own organization or broadly through the App Store or the Google Play Store. You can do this with OutSystems. Basically, you're just developing your application, and at the end, you decide which store you would like to go for. This also means that you don't have to have various different applications for each store. You can just have one mobile application, and then at the end you can go for either one of them or both of the typical stores. Also, you can develop progressive web apps which are intended to be used in the browser on your mobile phone. If you would have another tool for already developing the front end and creating the style guides and visual identity of your apps, you can use that as a front end and still use OutSystems for developing a backend if that would be a fitting purpose for you. The most important thing to note is that you use the same platform, you use the same techniques, and that means that the developers in your organization now only need the same skill set, and they can then build both web applications and mobile applications, meaning that you have a lot more flexibility. If we look at the development itself, the most important part is that it's visual. That means that OutSystems provide an abstraction on top of the actual code. You drag and drop something, and they translate it into the code behind the scenes. What is very important to note is that this reaches very far, the visual element of it. It's not only the logic flows, but it's even more features than that. If you look at the picture, this is a screenshot from the OutSystems platform. This is what Zhang was talking about, looking like BPM modeling. This is for a backend flow, but we could do the same for other types of development work. So this could not only be front-end or back-end. In the OutSystems platform, you can also develop your database entities. You can create relations between those entities. You can also build APIs or business processes. The business processes could be manual tasks or automated tasks. So you can create automation through the platform as well. If you would like to go for automated testing, similarly to what you previously do with unit testing, you can still do this in OutSystems. They provide a BDD framework for behavior-driven development, which allows you to also automate tests using the same features, meaning that, again, it's the same skill set that you have to know. You don't need to know an external testing tool just to set up automated tests. One very important thing to note is that OutSystems is a platform. It's not just a development environment. This means that the development environment itself, that supports full stack development, meaning everything from front end to back end to database and processes. But the platform also supports a full life cycle, meaning that once you have any application in a ready state, you can choose to just click the button and it will deploy it into infrastructure that it provisions for you. That infrastructure is by default provisioned in the OutSystems cloud, but you can choose to have that on-premise or in another cloud setting that you're using. You can do this if you would like. We will not go into details of this in this session, but we would be happy to interact with you on this issue if that should be relevant for you. If we look at the bottom left corner, we see the two elements of the platform that you would use most often in the beginning when you're developing a new application. In the Service Studio, you would do all of your development, no matter which application type and what part of the stack that you're developing. That is in the Service Studio. Whenever you push the button and would like to deploy it onto your development environment, that is where the platform server comes in. It has pre-built DevOps pipelines to allow you to ship it in and deploy it into the right environment. The same functionality is working when you go into the later parts of the development and you would like to take it to production. And at this stage, you can use the same services by the click of a button in the lifetime application to choose to move applications from one environment to another environment. It will check for you whether you have all the dependencies in place, or if it should deploy other features and components as well to make your application work. One very important thing to note, again talking into the speed of developing new applications, is that we have the service center, which contains all the monitoring of your application. So under the hood, OutSystems builds in logging and metrics and so forth, meaning that it will log all things that are relevant for you and automatically push this to the service center. So by default, all of your logging and monitoring is in here. That includes everything from application logic to security, user access, and so forth. All of that is logged by default. Now, one thing that you could be afraid of when you're looking into low-code applications is that you're being locked in by the abstraction, meaning that you will have less flexibility, or there's some specific thing for you that you would like to do, which is not included in OutSystems by default. Here in the right side, we see the Integration Studio. The meaning of this is that you have the ability to import C# libraries if you have some specific logic that you would like to reuse in your OutSystems application. You can do the same if you have some front-end, some front-end widget that you would like to use. You can import your own JavaScript and then extend the features of the platform. So, the most important thing OutSystems would like to do for you is to increase your ability to prototype different applications. So, of course, you would still need IT personnel to help you to release it to production at the end. But the idea is that much of the prototyping is a business perspective, and you would like to not be limited by your IT resources. So for this reason, OutSystems has provided a bunch of accelerators that should increase the development speed that you will have with this platform. I'll just take you through 5 of them. First of all, OutSystems is built, like Sean said, in a microservice-oriented architecture. That means that under the hood, you are building a lot of different components, and those components can be reused across different applications. So let's say you have a bunch of 4 front-end applications you would like to have the same look and feel, the same identity. In that regard, you can build one component to have your style guide that works for your organization, and then you can reuse that across all of your applications. Second of all, although low-code might be new on the agenda, OutSystems as a platform is actually quite old. It has a load of experience, and there's actually a whole open source community behind it. That also means that open source community, they can build extensions to the platform and upload those to what is called the OutSystems Forge. In there, we can find more than 3,000 different apps that helps with all different aspects of the platform. A lot of it could be connectors to different services, which we would also look into in a moment. When you're building a new application, OutSystems provides you with some pre-built screen templates that you can use. That means that if you have a typical screen for listing all of the open cases, or you have a screen for registering something on your phone. Those screens has some pre-built screen templates that you can make use of just to get started and get something up and running in a hurry. Now, the idea of building something very fast has been developed even further. So the last two things are two new features that were just announced 3 weeks ago at their Next Step conference. Both of them is features that build on top of the OutSystems platform and moves the development even closer to the business, meaning that, in our opinion, a business person with very little technical insight can build an application in just a matter of hours and then test it out. And if it's okay, they can then push it to the technical people just to make further enhancements and customizations. But this allows you to prototype in a lot faster way than what you usually could. If we look into them, the first one is for web applications. That means we have something called a workflow builder that would allow the business person to just say, I would like this formula with these fields, and then he or she can decide what would the typical flow be for handling this application or this formula. You can include manual or automated steps, and you can decide who should be contacted at each stage in this workflow. When he or she is completed, you can then deploy it, you can test it out, and when you are satisfied, you can then push it to the technical people, who then gets the whole OutSystems application that was built by this feature. Now you have a normal OutSystems application that you can then extend as you would like. The last feature is similarly just called the Experience Builder, and this is for mobile apps. So in this case, you have a canvas, and in that canvas, you can choose to drag and drop different screens. Now, OutSystems provides a lot of different screens, and they are targeted for different types of applications. That could be healthcare, or it could be something like open banking. If you would like to develop an open banking mobile app, then they have a range of screens that are typically used in such an application. And as the business person, you can then say, I would like to log in with this screen. If I press this button, I would like to go to this screen, and so forth. You can design the experience. When you're done, you can deploy it, test it out, and when you're satisfied, push it to the developer, who then gets the full mobile application and can then enhance it further. In our experience, you can build these prototypes in just a matter of hours, and it requires very little technical skill to do so. Now we have 2 slides left of the deep dive into OutSystems, and both of them are targeting how you can integrate and collaborate with other tools and applications from your OutSystems app. As Jean said, the application or the platform of OutSystems is really targeting to be able to work as part of your system landscape. That means that you can consume other APIs, or you can expose APIs such that other applications can now use whatever you do inside of your application. If we have a look at the screen, what you see in the yellow and green boxes are components of your OutSystems application. Once again, OutSystems makes different components, and each component can be reused across different applications. So you can have different logic in each component, and as the green boxes indicate, you can have a component for extracting data from one or more of your existing sources, structure that data, and then put it in a fashion that you can reuse it or use it for different applications. That is a very strong part of OutSystems as we see it. As is indicated in the bottom, you can extract data from a lot of different sources. You can take it from your existing databases, or you could use sources such as Salesforce or SAP if that is where you have some information that you would like to reuse in your application. Similarly, in the top of the yellow boxes, you see APIs. These APIs can be exposed such that other components can now use whatever you do inside of your application in OutSystems. If you expose, that would typically be through REST, and it would follow Open API standards. Now, the other aspect of creating a development lifecycle that actually fits in with the rest of the organization is to allow you to reuse some of the third-party tools and services that you already use. So for this, we have just had a quick look in the OutSystems Forge to see what connectors are already built by other parties. If you would like to build your own that is of course also possible. But just to give an indication that you can easily interact with a lot of the services that you already use. So if you look for databases, you could choose to have all your data in your own database. Either you can extract it from there or put it into that one, instead of using the database provided by OutSystems. You could use SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, and so forth. This is just some of the databases available. If you would like to have some other database you use, again, you can create that connector on your own. For collaboration, you might use Jira or Teams or Slack or something else already. You can interact through the connector with these tools, meaning that you could send bugs to Jira if that is what you would like, or you could extract data from Jira and use it in your application. Also, if you would like to show that that you have deployed successfully to a new environment, you can send a message to Slack if that is what you would like. For social media purposes, there are also connectors available, just meaning if you would like to build applications that allows the user to interact with their feed in different social media platforms, this is easily available as well. If we go into the cloud one, here should be taken one cautious step. We have added AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud as some of the cloud providers, but that doesn't mean that you can use all the services already just by using connectors already made. But there are made connectors available for you for some of the typical services that you would use. That could be that you would like to store some information on some of the cloud services, such as S3 buckets in AVS or as blobs in the Azure storage accounts. You can do this, and this is made for you already. You can also connect easily to Salesforce to get information on your different customers and use that in your application if you would like to do so. Finally, for the monitoring part, I mentioned earlier that there is the service center that handles all of the monitoring from the application. OutSystems acknowledges that you might have other monitoring tools where you would like to have all of the monitoring for all of your applications. So there are open APIs that allows you to interact with the service center and extract data and put it into the monitoring tool that you use. If we look at the Forge, we see that some connectors has already been made for some of the other monitoring tools in the market. If that is not the case, again, you can just use the API and then contact it on your own to retrieve the data that you need. And with that, I would like to give the word back to Jean, who will take you through how to get started with OutSystems.
But before that, before you go, Jacob, there's just been a question, and that is, what are the limitations on the code side? What shouldn't you use OutSystems for?
You can do, like, the easy answer is to say that you can do most of what you would do normally. Where I would be cautious would be if you have some kind of calculation, a lot of very specific calculation logic. I would be a bit wary of doing that in a visual way, because you can still make the same box as you can with a non-low-code way of developing tools. Of course, you can test it, and you can make automated tests to do so. But as a developer, I would feel more safe in doing that in a traditional way. So if there's very, very complex logic, and there's a lot, especially calculation-wise, I would go with another way than low-code. But other than that, I think you can do almost everything that we have tried to do. You could do that easily. And if not by the system itself, then by extensions either found on the Forge, or you can use specific libraries that you have for some specific use cases.
So cautiousness with complex algorithms.
Yes, I would say that.
Yeah. All right. The question was also about what kind of use cases is not fitting for this. But what I was going to talk about was the great use cases for getting started on. So if we revert this, I could say I'll go through the easy ones first, and then we could talk a bit about what are complex use cases that are not fitting for this platform. But as we were talking about, when should you start using that? What is a good case to start on? Because you are buying an entire platform, so you better have something to use it for. You have to have a demand somewhere. And what could be great if it was something around mobile functions. So for instance, going out, taking a photo somewhere, documenting something with it. Could, if you work on roads, you find a hole, you say, okay, there's a hole in the road, I put it in, and I tell the municipality that need to go and fix this. So that could be sort of a data gathering application there. There are loads of uses of taking pictures with phones and adding some data to that. Of course, the usual stuff by collecting and displaying data, but in a format where it's maybe easier to go around with in your mobile, or if it's just simple reporting or getting an overview of stuff. That's the case for, I would almost say, all administrative systems. If you have a case where a few roles, or it doesn't cross a lot of business units, or where it's a limited number of users or functionality, it's a good place to start to get used to how OutSystems work. You can easily build on what you have, but starting somewhere where you can get the feedback from the users quite easily and making it simple to start with. I think that goes for everything new, but that's a good way to have some use cases like that. And then there's the legacy system replacement. If you can divide your legacy system into multiple functional areas and take them one by one, OutSystems is a very good way of replacing that. The great thing is also that it works with the APIs, or it can go directly into the database, so you can sort of transition easily from one system to another. It will take time, of course, but if it's known functionality, it's not that bad. So that's some of the good use cases to getting started on. What would then be bad? That would be the opposite, of course, where you have loads of functionality with a variety of roles and character, where it goes across a lot of business units. Don't do that to begin with. I am very certain that you can do that, but like any other system, it becomes complex. So rather divide it into isolated logic and try to deploy them like small applications.
Yes, agree. I also think the limitation on the number of included parties is the main thing to listen for what could be bad. So if you go across a lot of functional units, the main issue is not that the OutSystems platform cannot do that, but the main issue is that now you have to figure out, should you put things in OutSystems or next to it in other ways, and that can be a bit more troublesome to get started. So for that reason, you should pick an area where you have the control of the whole functionality and do not depend too much on other stakeholders that are completely new to OutSystems and maybe not ready to actually get on board with it.
I hope that answered the question that we received. I also hope that this gave you insight into what OutSystems is and what is the low-code, no-code systems, that we were able to lift up the hood on the box and show you what it's all about. One of the things that we've been saying is it's rapid development, it's quick getting to market, and as you can see, there's an estimated development thing of maybe we can do something in 2 weeks and 1 month. But what Jacob would like to show in a bit is just how our experiences around delivering with this application.
Yes, so it's important to say again that OutSystems has been on the market for a long time, and we have used it with a lot of clients, especially outside of Denmark. So the case that we would like to present is a governmental case from another country, where we would use OutSystems to build an integrated solution comprised of both a web application and a mobile application. This is, in this case, to support some welfare benefit management, where you build a web application that can take hand of all the case handling, appointment booking, and so forth. And then the caseworker can then use the mobile app when going to the client or the customer, and then use the app to do part of the assessment that they are doing, and then just register everything in the app, which would then synchronize with the web application. What we did in this case would be that we would go out and make a proof of concept, because most companies are very new to OutSystems and Lowcode, so we have to prove that OutSystems can actually fit for your purpose. For this, we used only one architect and one developer, which took 3 weeks to come up with a proof of concept containing both of the applications. Then, after the client was happy with this, we would go into creating detailed prototypes, something that would be very near to what we expected would be used. We would also make POCs of the different integrations that would be needed to integrate with existing systems, both new and old. And we would make a style guide, because now when we actually believe that we would use OutSystems and we have the platform, we would like to use it for other applications as well. So we created the style guide, which is basically just the component having your visual identity into all of the different front-end widgets that you can use. That took, again, one developer and one architect, and they used 3 months to do so. Then developing the actual minimum viable product that was released into production. At that point, we extended the team, having still one architect, but now 4 developers, to develop different aspects of the applications. This took 5 months, and on top of these people, we used other resources in short terms if we had specific needs. That could be UX or testing or something like that. The most important thing to notice is that there's a very small team capable of building a fairly complex and sophisticated applications. And of course, we could have more teams. OutSystems allow for that to do so. In this case, it didn't really make sense because it had to fit with changing legislation during the course of the project. But you can scale it if that is what you would like. Yes.
Right. So how do you get started? Well, you can actually try it out on your own. You can try the platform for free. You can get a free license to try it out, and you can follow the tutorials and the videos on OutSystems. And I'm fairly to say they're actually very good. You get up and started, and you can do your own applications within, I think, a very few days. Simple, of course, but a bit more than just the usual hello world stuff. But also, Deloitte can help you get started. We are very happy to go and show the platform, go to your place, talk to you about the potential in your organization, but also allow you to see what it's all about under the hood, see the development studio, to touch the code, to maybe do a bit of sampling ourselves. And then we can try give you a 1 month on the platform to try out where can you get. Maybe you just want to work with a prototyping, maybe you want to see how capable it is of integrating, or maybe just want to get a feel of what it's worth. We definitely would very much like to come and visit you and show you the platform and talk about your needs and how we can solve them with this platform.
I think that the 1 month POC, that the reason why we would like to help you with this is because going on board with OutSystems, you can of course have the free environments forever, but that has some limitations. And if you would like to try it out for real, then you would have to buy the platform. But because we are partnering with OutSystems, we can provide you with 1 month for free, where we can do all the work that we would like to do in that 1 month and see where it goes. And then we can take a decision. Would we actually like to go forward with this before we have to sign off on actually paying for the OutSystems platform? So this is an opportunity for you to try it out for real, in a real setting, and with some experts that can help you move a long way in just a month to see if it actually can come up with a solution to your issue.
Well,
Yes.
that was what's on today, and we're finished from now. I haven't seen any more questions coming in, so I hope you're satisfied. I hope you got a really good impression of what the fuss is all about and why we think that this is actually worth investing in. And I hope you know where to call if you want to see us. We're very happy to come by and show you the stuff.
Yes. Also just showcasing whatever can be done, let you get a touch of the whole application. It doesn't have to be more formal than that. Yes.